I finally thought of a video idea. Yay, childhood stories. People seem to totally like my my stories, right? No, but they don't. But I'm gonna pretend that they do. I was 9. When I was 9 years old, I used to live on a. My mom would like to call it a farm. We grew a small garden. We grew a pretty large box garden. We had, like, I guess you could call it an egg farm. We had like 150 chickens at the time. 150 chickens. We had 3 turkeys. No, we had 4 turkeys at the time. And a horse. And a lot of dogs and cats. But, and we had this horse. So, my mom, we had, I think the previous year, we grew 2 pigs. We grew 2 very large pigs. Apple-fed, corn-fed pigs. Well, scrap-fed more than corn-fed, but, you know, there was a lot of corn in those scraps. And apples. But still, we grew the pigs, we had them slaughtered. We don't do the slaughtering ourselves, we're not very good at that. And also, we're not butchers. So, we had them slaughtered. We got, like, I think at least 150 pounds of bacon. We got 150 pounds of bacon from, like, each pig. We had, like, 300 pounds of bacon. And we used this 300 pounds of bacon. We took, like, 60 pounds of it, and we traded 60 pounds of bacon, 60 pounds of bacon, some pork roast and pork shoulder, and then we traded it for a horse. She was a very young horse. She hadn't been trained yet. She was a very young horse who hadn't been trained, hasn't been saddle broken, and really only knows 2 commands. Yeah, she really only knows 2 commands. So, her name was Cupcake. Why? Heck if I know. I think my mom just thought it was cute. But, so we got this really young horse. We traded like 100 pounds of pork for a horse. And because my mom wanted a horse. My mom wants a lot of very large and arguably dangerous farm animals, despite our lack of knowledge on how to raise farm animals and lack of space to raise farm animals. So we were trying to saddle break this horse. We had in our barn at this house, we had a big old barn, big old white barn. It used to be a horse farm. People would raise and take care of horses, and I think they traded them off or sold them off to Amish and like horse show people, and then they would make profit off of it. But they left behind some of their old, really crappy horse gear, whatever you call it. Some old blankets, a saddle or 2, saddle, brushes, a yoke, but they left behind all the stuff that was either broken or so ridiculously old that you should never use it. And my mom decided to toss the saddle up on top of the horse and see if we could ride her, even though the horse wasn't trained yet. But I just so happened to be the first person to get to test out the new horse. Me, the person who at the time didn't know how to ride a horse, who was 9 years old, didn't know how to ride a horse. Throw me on top of that untrained horse with a battered, probably 40-year-old saddle. And so it was I was on there for like an hour before anything happened. There was a lot of like me freaking out because the horse started running, and then stopping the horse, and then the horse started eating, and then I'd try to get her to start doing something other than eat. And then eventually my cousin my older cousin, she was like 10 at the time. She's only a year older than me. She takes one of the alfalfa treats for the horse. She takes the alfalfa treat for the horse, waves it in front of her face, gets her attention, and she goes, I'm going to try to make her run. Wait, what? No, don't. And then my cousin starts running with the alfalfa treat with it in front of the horse's face, and then chucks it as hard as she can into the field. And I'm like, and then all of a sudden this horse flipping flies up. I'm good for about 10 seconds. I stood up on top of the horse because I'm getting thrown flipping all over the place, and then I stand up on top of the horse and I'm like, okay, this seems cool. I'm trying to calm down the horse, and all of a sudden I just start going like this. And I held my balance for a couple of seconds, and all of a sudden the horse turned and I went, woo! I was underneath the horse for about 2 or 3 seconds, enough time to see a hoof coming towards my face, and then get knocked in the collarbone and flung off the horse. Flung underneath the horse. So I'm laying in the middle of a field. I had just fallen underneath the horse. Luckily, I didn't get trampled. My mom is now freaking out because the horse is freaking out, and she's trying to chase the horse down, calm the horse down, get her back into the barn so she can calm down and stop freaking out. And there was like, let me think. There was 1, 2, 3. There were like 4 kids, including me. There were 4 kids, including me. My older cousin, my younger brother, and me. And my mom was like freaking out. And all I can think of is, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't move my right arm. Everything hurts. I got the wind knocked out of me. I landed like flat on my back, and it knocked the wind out of me. And then on top of that, I couldn't move my right arm because I got struck in the collarbone by the horse's front hoof. And then, so I'm just laying there on my back in the middle of the field, and I go, I can't move my legs. I can't move my right arm. And then I look up, and I see the horse coming straight for me, and I'm like, forget this. I flop onto my stomach. And start dragging myself over to some kind of cover. This is an open field. The only cover that was anywhere near there was this really big old apple tree. And I'm about 100 feet away from this thing. I started like one-arm army crawling as fast as I could towards that tree. And I'm just like flipping, trying to get the right arm up there to drag myself a little faster. Just flipping. I get it up there, and I pull, and I go, flipping. I continue to army crawl all the way up to this tree. Once I got there, I propped myself up against the tree, and then I, trying to regain my breath, all I could hear from my mom is, go towards us! Go next to the apple tree with him! Flipping, go! And she pointed towards me, stay here, don't move. And then me and my younger cousin, stay here, don't move. I'm gonna go get your younger brother's wagon. And then she took my younger brother to go off and get this big plastic wagon to load me into it, so they could drag me back over to the house because I couldn't move. My mom managed to grab a hold of the yoke on the horse, pull her to the ground. Not pull her to the ground, but pull her down, get her to calm down a little bit, and then she put her back into her stall. And I got itchies on my nose, but so she got the horse back into the stall, and I'm still next to the apple tree going. By the time my mom gets the horse back into the stall, I have finally regained my breath, and I'm starting to stand up. I can now stand up. I stand up, and I'm like, I think I broke my arm. My mom was just like, "You what? Are you okay?" No, my arm hurts. I can't move my arm. She's like, "Oh, holy crap. Can you stand up?" I'm like, can you walk back to the house? I'm like, I don't know. And I took a couple of steps and I stumbled. And my mom goes, "Okay, we're gonna load you into the wagon." They load me into the wagon. I'm like laying down in the wagon, still like. She took me over up to the house, and my mom looks down at me like holding my arm or holding my shoulder, like staring up at the sky, breathing heavily, and she goes, "Do you think you need to go to the hospital?" "Yes." "Okay, put your shoes on. We're gonna go to the hospital." "Okay." And she threw me my shoes. I somehow managed to put my shoes on. I think I was wearing like sandals or something. So I plop them on, and then she drives me over to the emergency room. And she drives me over to the emergency room. She puts me in. We go in. I'm sitting there for like, I think we were there for 2.5 hours. There was a lot of emergencies that day, and they were bringing a lot of people in on gurneys. So we ended up sitting for like 2.5 to 3 hours, waiting to get my shoulder X-rayed. And I started to regain feeling in my arm after a while. I was hesitant to move it because of how much it hurt. But how much it hurt when I did move it. But we finally get in to see the doctor. They throw me on the X-ray. Take a couple of pictures, and send me back over into the waiting room. We were sitting there for another like 2 hours waiting for the X-rays to get processed and the information to get back. The nurse comes up, hands my mom a couple of the pictures, shows her a couple of the pictures, and tells her what's going on. Okay, and I overhear, "So your son has a fracture, has a fracture in one part of his collarbone and some serious bruising on the other part." And he's gonna need to go into a sling. He's gonna need to wear like an arm sling for like 3 weeks. And it shouldn't need a cast. It shouldn't need a cast or any splints or anything, but he's gonna need to wear an arm sling for the next 3 weeks. And I hear this and I'm like, I'm really stupid. Even now I'm still kind of this stupid. I'm looking up and I'm like, cool, my first arm sling. Cause I'm a crackhead. But it flippin' hurt. My arm flippin' hurt for the next, I think, week or so. I couldn't move my arm until a couple of days afterwards, and then I couldn't. I could move my arm, but not without it, like splintering pains all up and down my arm. But yeah. I ended up wearing the thing for like a solid 2. I ended up wearing the thing for like 2 weeks, and then forgot where I put it, and then I just like, okay, well, I guess I don't have to wear the arm splint now. And then walking around, going around, doing my Cub Scouts and doing my Cub Scouts, going around doing my Cub Scouty thing, and then and like continuing on with my young boy crackhead nature. It was that was a fun 2 weeks, especially getting into water balloon fights when I couldn't use one of my arms. But yeah, that was a fun little story there. I can't wait to edit that. But yeah, long story short, I fractured my collarbone from a horse ride.